All right, ladies and gentlemen, here is part 2 of lesson 8.6, talking about factoring trinomials. Now we're going to deal with one that has an A in front of it. Now they've always had an A, but when the A is now an actual physical number, okay, like on this example here, it's the number 5. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you guys some of the techniques. We should be taught a different way in terms of factoring and doing a whole bunch. But I'm going to show you 2 different methods, okay? One's called the easy A method, and the other one's called the slide A method, okay? So it's basically what this is, ladies and gentlemen, is there are 2 tricks to solve these, okay? That are not necessarily, do they want us to teach you these tricks, but I want to teach it to you because my goal is for you to get this done quickly, get it done right, and to know kind of how the context of doing it, okay? So what you're going to do is, first off, is remember the form of this equation needs to be ax squared plus bx, right, plus c. If you guys remember on our factoring method, so we're still going to use this, and we had up here, we had c, right? But now what we had, and we had down here, was b. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add a letter to the top, okay? So the top letter up here now is going to be actually A times C. Okay, so A times C, and then the bottom is going to be B. Okay, so for this first example right here, right, we would have A times C. Okay, so when I do my X, it would be 5 times 10. Okay, or I'm not going to write that. Instead, ladies and gentlemen, it would be what? 50. Okay, and then down here, it's 27. Now, same rules apply. 2 positives. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to find what 2 numbers multiply together to make 50, and when you add them, they make 27. Those rules are still the same. Okay, so if I had 50 and I split this, all right, 1 and 50, of course, is not going to be even close, but 2 and 25. All right, if you add these 2 together, 2 plus equals what? 27. So I got 2 and I got a 25. All right. So this is an x value, so let's bring it down. All right, everybody should be at this point right here. What I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to show you 2 different techniques to solve this. Now, for you at home, it is, what are you more comfortable with, like we've always talked about, and what do you understand? Okay, so what I mean by that is as follows. Okay, so what we're going to do is, this is your basic premise, okay? These are your 2 equations. Let me put a little bit more of a gap on this one. Whoops. All right, so the premise of this has always been the same, okay? Where you guys know that these 2 setups would actually be identical from the very beginning, okay? Now, here's the trick, okay? There's 2 different ways of solving it. The first is, no matter what, we have to deal with this number 5, okay, which is the A value. So there's 2 ways of doing it. The first is called the slide method, okay, where once you multiply this, then what you do is you would slide this 5 down into the denominator. So you would take the last number here, divide it by 5, divide this by 5. Okay, so let me show you the example on this one. All right, so if I divide these by 5, can you simplify this? Okay, this one here you cannot. It still is going to be x plus 2 over 5. So this is where some of you, I want to make sure you have this written at the appropriate level. Okay, and this one over here, can you solve this and simplify it? Yeah, you can. This would end up being what? X plus 5. Okay, so what the problem though is that would you leave this fraction here? No, you wouldn't. So what the reason it's called the slide method is because you take this factor here, this 5, you can't leave it as 2 over 5ths. You take this and you slide it back into the front. Okay, so your answer ends up being 5x plus 2 and x plus 5. Okay, so hopefully everybody sees the setup on this. Okay, slide method is you take the A value down here, you divide it by both numbers. If you can solve it, then you simplify it. If you cannot simplify it, then that bottom denominator needs to be slid in front of the x, and there's your setup of the equation. Now, if we were to multiply this out from this particular point, okay, if you were to multiply this out, so if we got 5x plus 2, and then you do your box method, okay, it'd be x and a 5. Sorry for all the bells. This would be 5x squared, okay? That's the problem we have. We have to find the 5x squared, which we now have. And then this would be 25x, this would be 2x, and this would be 10. You add these two together, you get 5x squared plus 27x plus 10. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what we wanted. Okay, so here's the first one. Okay, remember, take the a, slide it down here, do your division. The second one, okay, is to start off, it's called the easy A method, is that you take the 5 and you put it in this equation. So you leave it just like that. Okay, so now here's our setup on this. And then what you do is you use your factoring skills and you factor out a common denominator or a common factor. So for example, on this first piece right here, ladies and gentlemen, can you, hold on, let me get a green. If I put a purple next to each other, come on now, green. That's that. Okay, so can you factor anything out of 5x plus 2? No, you cannot. Okay, they do not have anything in common. But with this one right here, they actually do have a factor, right? You can factor out 5 from here and from here. And if you factor out a 5, you'd be left with what? X plus 5. Now the question is do I do anything with the 5 that I factored out? Okay, because that's what I factored out. The answer is, ladies and gentlemen, yes, you do something with it. You erase it. And that's your answer. Okay, this is how we got this one here. We got that one exactly the same way. All right, we're going to go over this multiple times, at least 6 times, okay? Using these two methods, you figure out which one you like better. Or you drop down the a value into the equation after you get your values, okay? And then you solve, or you do the slide method with the fraction, okay? Some of you might like either one. I don't care which one you do, just like when we did the box method, or the FOIL, or the other ones. Okay, so here, first step, take this, multiply it in. So I know my top value is going to be negative 45, right? And then my bottom value is going to be 12. And if it's a positive here and a negative here, I know, ladies and gentlemen, I've got what? A negative number and a positive number going together. So what two numbers multiply together to make 45, but when you subtract them, they make 12? Well, that's great. So let's do our simple math, which is not so simple. All right, so I got 45 here. Let me see here. If I got 2, 2 would be way too big, so there's no way it's going to be 12. Or is it? 2 can't go into that. All right, so 3, no. 4, 5 can. So it'd be 5 and 8. Okay, So then the question now becomes, what else can go into it? Because 8 minus 5 is actually not 45. So let's look. Let me see here. So I got 45. I'm going to divide that by 2. Whoops. 5. Divide that by 2. No. Oh, look. 45 divided by... So I already knew the one off the top would be 5. But some of you may not know it is actually going to be 3 times 15 is actually 45. And there's my kicker. So this needs to be positive. So it'd be negative plus would be what? 12. So those are my two values. See, sometimes you just got to work through it. Think to what values would be. At first I was like, no, there's no way it's 3. But I guess the answer is 3. So we have 15 here. And we know it's got to be negative because 15 minus 3 is 12. So here are my two values, okay? And let me, hopefully you guys all wrote this down. Let me erase this because it's going to get in my way. Okay, on this one here, so let's go purple again. All right, so we know my values are going to be 15 and negative 3. So I'll do the one method first, okay, where I take the 5, I divide this by 5, divide this by 5. Okay, if I do that, I get x plus 3, because you can simplify that. And this one you can't simplify, so you take the 5 up to here, and you'd end up with 5x minus 3. If I do it the other way, let me use blue on this case. Remember, it'd be 5 coming down, so it would be 5x plus 15, and then it's going to be 5x minus 3. Sorry, I didn't close that one off. Can you factor anything out of this one? No. But can you factor a 5 out of here? Yes. So you'd be x plus 3, 5x minus 3. Okay. Same answer, two different methods. Okay. The factoring one I'll do first the next go around. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, watch it again if you have to. Rewind the video. Understand the process. Now it is your turn. All right. Slide these over. Multiply it first. So this would be 30 and 13, and I know it's going to be 2 pluses. Okay, if on this one here, slide that one over to there. 4 times 8 is 8 times 6 is, because my brain's not working, 48. So remember, that's a negative 48 and a positive 22. Which means this is going to be a positive number right here and a negative there. And so we'll go from there. So on this particular one, this first one right here, as we're going through, let's talk about it real quick. What two numbers would multiply to make 30, add to make 13? Well, if you think about it, I got 2, so that'd be 2 and 15, that's too high. 3 and 10. Right, 3 plus 10 is 13. Add up, multiply them together, you got 30. So on this one now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the 5 down right away. So it's 5x plus 3, okay, and then it's 5x plus 10. If you're asking, where did you get that 5, Mr. Steiger? It's the first letter right there, okay? It's the a value right there. If you just drop it straight in the original equation, so you take your a, you put it in right away. Put it in there, and you put it in right there, okay? And then you do the what? So on this one, you would factor, okay? Can you factor anything out of this one? Nope. It's 5x plus 3. Can you factor anything out of this? Yep, they share a 5. X plus 2, right? Because if you factor out a 5, you'd end up with x plus 2. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, for everybody that was telling me, why are we learning this on Friday and Thursday? Emily, just know this is the reason why we're doing it, okay? So that you guys understand it's a faster way to solve it. I'm already done. I don't have to do anything else. I move on. If you want to use the other method, okay, it's the same thing. On this one here, it would be, so if you do the other method where you drop the a down, it'd be x plus 3, right? And then it would be x plus 10. And then the factoring was, you take it and you divide by 5. Divide just the number by 5. Okay? Can you simplify this? Yes, you can. X plus 2. Can you simplify this? No. So you slide the 5 in front of that. 5x plus 3. Okay? You're going to get the same example and answer every single time. Two different ways of doing it. All right? Same. All right, once again, sorry for the weird cut. I went through and I started working on this example and I actually had a mistake, so I had to back the video up and cut it for in there. So next thing I want to do is on this one right here, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I forgot to mention, which we hadn't run into until we got to this problem, is you have to make sure you can't factor anything out of these equations first. So if you look at all these numbers here, what kind of numbers are these? These are all what? Even numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, can you factor anything out of here? We actually can factor the number 2 out of here. Okay, so if you did that, our equation would be 2 times 3x squared. Right? Then it would be plus 11x minus 4. Now can we factor it? Yes. Okay, now you should work on factoring from here. So what I had on there before about the higher value, I know that's going to be on the video. Ignore that, what I told you guys, because now we're going to have to work on this one. So the question then becomes is when you slide that over, it would be your value is a negative 12. Okay, so that's negative 12 now, and it's 11. we still know the same thing, okay, that this is going to have to be a negative and this is going to have to be a positive, okay? So what two numbers multiply together to make a negative 12, but when you subtract them, they make an 11? Well, that, of course, would be 12 minus 1, which is what? 11. So now that we have that set up, let's do the factoring part. So we're going to use this one now. Okay, so it's 3x, and it's going to be plus 12, and then it's going to be 3x minus 1. So there's your setup right there. And then, ladies and gentlemen, when you work on factoring it out, we still have a 2 hanging out here on the outside. Can you factor anything out of this equation? The answer would be what? Yes, you can, okay? You can factor a 3 out. So if you factor the 3 out, it would be x plus 4 and 3x minus 1. And the outside, ladies and gentlemen, would be multiplied by 2. Okay, so what would happen then is if you multiply these together, this would be 3x squared, and then you would times it by 2. You would get this answer. So here's the answer for this particular one. Okay, now if you did that with the factoring method the other way, and so some of you may have gotten a different answer than me. If you got a 6x minus 2 right here, that's okay, because technically that's going to be the same thing. If you got 2x plus 8 right there, that's fine. You would have already distributed the 2 in either one of those. So know that, ladies and gentlemen, you could also rewrite this as another example, but going forward, I'll make sure before we cover any of these examples that, and if you got stuck and you worked it a couple times, hopefully you would watch the video by the time you stressed yourself out. So again, it's going to be x plus 12, and then it's going to be x minus 1, and then you would divide it by 3, divide by 3, okay, and if you see that, this is going to be what? X plus 4, and then this is going to be 3x minus 1, all times by 2 on the outside. Usually, ladies and gentlemen, we don't present this to you, but the book likes to throw in these wonky ones, so I got to make sure I show you that to you as we go forward. All right, next, factoring it with a negative in front. Okay, so we had talked about this before. Negative and a negative is going to be a positive. So if you have it set up like this, okay, first we have to look, can we factor anything out of here? 3, 17, 20, no, those are actually, they won't share anything. 3 is a prime number, can it factor into 22? No, so these aren't, we ain't got to worry about the craziness that we just saw from the previous lovely example. Okay, so first step, multiply these over. So you'd have 60, and then this is going to be minus 17. So we know it's going to be a double negative here. We know this one's going to be 24 times 3, which is a bigger number. Okay, 24 times 3 is, go. 72. And we know the bottom number here is going to be minus 22. And it's going to be a double negative. Okay, so what two numbers is basically like adding them together. Okay, what two numbers would you add together to get into here, but we're subtracting them together. So you have to start thinking with 60, it's a very large number. Okay, we would have, I'm going to skip down to 3 and 20. If I had those two, if it would be negative and negative, that would be negative 23. What about 4? 4 and, so 60 divided by 4 is going to be 15. Oh, add those together, that's 19. I'm getting closer. What about 5? 5 divided by 60 is 11, right? No, it's 12. Yes, it's 12. So 5 and 5 times 12 is 60. 5 and 12. If I had negative and negative, ladies and gentlemen, there would be my answer. Okay, so are you going to have to do troubleshooting like this? Yes, you will, okay, especially for the larger numbers. That's why it's important for you guys to know your multiplication tables. Just like I don't. All right, x minus 5. So I'll do the factoring one over here first. I'm going to put a 3 in front of it. Okay, and then this would be 3x minus 12. I'm only going to show one method going forward. I'll alternate between the two, so it's whichever one you like, try it. Okay, so we know that this is going to be pretty much the setup on the front. You can factor out of here a 3. If you do that, the back end of this equation turns into a x minus 4. Okay, if I factor out a 3, there's your answer. On this one over here, ladies and gentlemen, what two numbers multiply to make 72? Oh yay, oh yay. All right, so let me start with 4. So 72 divided by 4 is 18. Oh, that was a lucky guess. 72 and 4, because I figured it can't be 2 because that'd be too big. But 4 and 18 actually equals 22. Okay, so negative and a negative. Same setup. Okay, if you guys were to go down here, and so this one's a little bit more trickier, where it would be x minus 4 and x minus 18. Okay, and then you would divide by 24. Divide by 24. So if you do that, can you simplify this fraction here? Okay, so this method, let's see what the compromise between these two methods are. Okay, so this 4 divided by 24 can be reduced. Like if you were to go to our calculators and you put in 4 divided by 24, okay, it would actually give you a reduced fraction of 1 over 6. So it would be x minus 1 divided by 6. And then can you reduce this? 18 divided by 24. Okay, if you reduce that, it can be 3 over 4. So you would know this would be x minus 3 over 4. Ladies and gentlemen, can they be reduced any further? No, since they cannot, you got to slide these up into the front. Slide this up in the front up here. Slide that up there. So you get 6x minus 1 and 4x minus 3. How about that? Multiply those two together, it'd be 20x squared, 24x squared. Yep. 6 times 4, 24x squared. I know I'm on the right path. So let's try it if I were to do the other method, okay? So I'll put it in blue sitting right next to it. So if I were to do the other method, it would have been, let's do it over here. It would have been 24x. So if you guys tried the other method, 24x minus 4, okay? And then this would have been 24x minus 18. So being such a large number, some of you may have struggled with the factoring part. Now some of you would have got this first one right away. Said, oh, I could factor out a 4. And if you factor out a 4, you get 6x minus 1, right? So some of you might have gotten that one. But you may have gotten stumbled on this one because I noticed that when we did the factoring part on the Friday before this lesson, a lot of you struggled with trying to break it down as far as you could go. Some of you may not have taken it far enough if you were to try to use this method. Okay, so there's pros and cons with each method. So on this particular one, you would have had to have known to factor out 6. Okay, if you had known to have had to factor out 6, so that way it would have been 6, and then this would have been 4x, and that would have been minus 3. Okay, so that way you guys know the greatest common factor. Some of you would have only done the number 2. You would have left 12x minus 9, and then you would have looked at yourself, well, can I do anything else with that? And you'd be like, no. The answer is yes. Okay, you could have factored out a 3. Because if this is 12x minus 9, they both share a 3. So please make sure if you're going to use the factoring method that you factor out the whole thing and don't leave anything behind that they share in common. Okay, that was a struggle that a lot of you guys had on when we started doing the homework. All right, work on this one. All right, can we factor out a number from any of these? No, that's an odd. We have 2 evens. No, so we'll just answer it straight up. So as we go from here, ladies and gentlemen, and this doesn't have a negative in front, otherwise you can factor out a -1, but since y'all share, so let's work on our method here. So this is going to slide over, multiply it. So it's -2, -1. So what two numbers would multiply together to make -2? So we know this is going to be a negative and a positive. All right, and then this one's sliding over. Oh, this is a nice big number here, right? So this is going to be 120 and -23. So we know we're going to have a plus minus. So what two numbers would subtract from each other? Okay, actually, no, that's not right. That is a double negative as well. Sorry, I forgot about that. So don't do what I do. So make sure you guys understand why is it a double negative? Because that plus sign in the back. All right, so this is a minus plus, this is a minus minus setup. All right, so first thing first, what two numbers would multiply? Well, the answer is going to be 2, but the answer is which way does it go? It's going to have to go this way. -2 plus 1 is -1. So if I know this is n minus 2, okay, and this would be n plus 1. All right, you do your division. So I'm going to bring down the factor, divide by 2, divide by 2. I know, ladies and gentlemen, that this one simplifies, n minus 1, but this one does not, so it would be 2n plus 1. All right, this one over here, I'll use the factoring down method. So we got 120. What two numbers basically added together would equal that? So let's try, so we're going to have to do, let's see where we're at if we do 5. Because I know if we do 10, like we did earlier, okay, 10 and 12, that's 22. It's close, but that's not close enough. So what about 9? Let me see here. 120 divided by 9. Nope. Divided by 8. 8. So if I got 8 times 15, okay, if I add 8 times 15 is 120. And so if I were to subtract them both from each other, that would be negative 23. There's our answer, 8 and 15. So let's do the slide down method here. So we're going to be 10x minus 8. Okay, and then this is going to be 10x minus 15. Same steps apply, ladies and gentlemen. Find the factoring part. Okay, what is the factoring for that you guys want to do? Can you, if I yank out a factor out of 2 from here, okay, if I factor out of 2, I would have 5x minus 4. Can I go any further than this? The answer would be what? No. Okay, so I know that my beginning part is 5x minus 4. That's good. Now, on this one right here, what's the greatest I can factor out? Well, it's going to be a 5. If I factor out a 5 from here, this one would be 2x minus 3. Can you factor that down any farther? No, you cannot. Ladies and gentlemen, there's your answer. All right, if you did the other method, where you divided it underneath, okay, you would have gotten a 10 down here. You would known that you could have 8 over 10 would have been reduced to 4 over 5. And if you put 15 over 10, you know it will reduce to 3 over 2. So it's kind of the same setup. Like I said, it just depends on you. All right. Determine whether a polynomial is prime. Oh, yay. So we have to factor this if possible. Okay. So what we're going to work into now is the last couple of examples here is whether something is prime or not. And so what that is that can you factor this? So let's use our methods. Okay. So we know we're going to slide this over first. Okay. Where did that go? All right, we know we're going to slide this over to here first, right? So let's slide that over and let's see if we can solve this one. So we know this is 3 times 5 is negative 15, and on this it would be 7, right? So the question is can you factor this? Is it legit? Negative 15, okay? So what would be our multiplications of 15? It would of course be 1 and 15, okay? And then we have 2, no, 3, yep, 3 and 5. And ladies and gentlemen, is that it? Yes, that is it. Okay, there's no other ones that can go into 15. So the question is, this is plus, this is negative. So if we know that, we're going minus plus, right? So we know that, or plus minus, sorry, let me write that the other way. It would be plus minus. So we know that whatever two numbers we have here, all right, they're going to subtract to get 7. So the question is can you do that? Is 15 minus 1? No. Can you go the other way? No, because it has to be positive. Negative 5, can that is? No. There's no possible solution to this. Since there's no possible solution, ladies and gentlemen, this is a prime polynomial. Which means it cannot be factored. Okay? Alright, what I want you to do is try the method on this. Okay? See if you can slide this over. Start from here. Okay? So this would be 28. And it would be a negative 1. See if you can solve that, or the other one, see if it's prime, and then we'll go from there. All right, hopefully you guys had a chance to look at this and try it out yourself. This setup here would have been a negative 10 and a 3, and let's see which one of these are prime. Maybe both are. Maybe only one. So on this one we know, negative and positive, that this is going to be a double negative. And this is positive and that's negative, we know we're going to have a positive and a minus. Okay, so at least we know the setup. All right, so now we can look at, we're going to be basically adding two numbers together to get that. Well, I'm going to tell you straight up right now, there's no way that's going to happen. All right, so by looking at it, It'd be 28, right? You have 28 in 1. You could do 4, no, 6. Hold on, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so if you know, here's the question, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a double negative right here, can you factor this out? And the answer, of course, to this one would be no, it's prime. Okay? The reason I know it right away by looking at it is saying to myself, this is two negative numbers, right? So what two numbers would subtract from each other, so they're basically the same number, to equal -1? Well, that's impossible. Okay, this would have had to have been a negative and this could have been a positive, and sure, we could talk about subtracting them, but if they're both the same, that's not possible. Okay, so that's a prime number. So let's look at this one right here. So we got -10. Okay, we know we're subtracting the numbers from each other. So we got 5 and 2. Can you do that? 5 minus 2, does that equal what? 3? Then, ladies and gentlemen, this can be worked out. Okay, so we know this would be, the 5 would go over here, the 2 would go over here, and then from that aspect of it, you would just figure out which way you'd want to go. I'll use the easy method on this one. So there's your setup. Can I factor anything out of this? No. Can I out of that? Yep. So it's 2x plus 5, and it's going to be x minus 1. Okay, I can factor out a 2 from that back side. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Okay, hopefully you guys have learned how to do the factoring. Homework will have a lot more. We are going to work on factoring out with lesson 8.7 as well, factoring out special products. And just know, ladies and gentlemen, that I know I threw in this prime, but don't assume everything is prime. The only way you will know if it's prime is I will do what? Factor the following, and I will put if possible, okay? Please do not start to work on this and think, oh, I can't solve this, so this is prime, this is prime, this is prime. The likelihood of something being prime, okay, we will ask you for it if it is prime. Otherwise, the likelihood of being prime is not at all, okay? It's you that have to figure out what you're doing and the mistakes that you're making. Factoring has a lot to do with multiplication. Okay, the higher the numbers are, especially with the A, the harder it'll get. But ladies and gentlemen, you can do it. Troubleshoot like I did, okay? Find the problem. Don't just give up, please. Work hard, and I know you guys can succeed. Until next time, if you have any questions, please come see me. If you need tutoring, I'm here every day after school, except for Fridays usually. So otherwise, come see me. And I'm even here after 7th hour for some of my students that do have a 7th hour, okay? If you want to come in, just talk to me, and I'll make sure I stay here. Otherwise, have a great day, evening, or morning, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.